Okay, we have a sample character here from class and a fun little character, but it's a nice simple graphical character. So if I just smooth it one time, take a look. You can see it's just gonna have eyes floating inside the cowl of the hood, and does have fingers, hands. I put boots on him. It did have toes on the foot, but I haven't done the foot demo yet, so we're just gonna run with this one. And you can see, go back to low poly mode. Also, there's seams here, little cuffs, let's say. So Alt 5 on the keyboard's your wireframe shortcut. Then you can see I added a little cuff here, or hem, and they're on the edge on the bottom of the robe, edge of the sleeves, and around the cowl of the hood. And the reason that's important is we're going to do a couple tricks with this. So we're going to UV map it, so UVW mapping, important, and then we're going to smooth it, make it a little bit higher polygon, and after we smooth it, UV, then we smooth it, then we're going to use new tool up here. It's called crease tool. Use the crease tool to sharpen some of the edges, so as we smooth it, it's going to keep those sharp edges for us. Take a look at how that works. Other thing to note here, there's a few different ways you could do the character's limbs in the garment. So for the hands, I just went ahead and did what's called a pipe shove. Pipe shoves when you just shove one part of the model through the other, called a pipe. Then you might have pipes. So you always do pipe sets for some kind of game system, and the pipes, which you could just shove them right into the wall. You don't have to have them all sealed up. For the legs, however, though, I did seal them up like we did with the biped. So I went ahead and took that torso area with the 8-sided, the 12-sided torso, and then cut the two bottoms off here, did the 8-sided leg, and kept them. So either way can work. You can pipe shove it through the cuff, and how deep the cuff is, like you just want to not see the backside of it too much. So I might bring these up higher. Same thing for underneath. You might do like a pure black or something like that. And in the cowl here for the eyes, you just have to make design decisions, and you can check your reference of some other games. But let's go ahead and do the UV mapping first. So for UV mapping, it's a couple simple steps to do this. And I got to find my UV editing tab on the keyboard. So first thing is a planar mapping. So I just take the whole model, just do a flat planar map and take a look at that. You can see which side. So it's going to just do a side view. So what it's going to do if I open up the UV editor is it's going to just project pixels from the side view on a flat plane. It'll be equal on both sides. And so if I turn on the UV map right here as a checkerboard, you can see it's stretching. So it's compressed in there, so the pixels, the cubes are compressed. It's correct on one side, but from the other side, it's mirror. It's going to be backwards. So if you wanted to have it where you only have to UV or do pixels on one half of the model, have it share the other side, just remember that it's going to invert anything that has lettering or writing is going to be mirrored on there. The control for this little tiny wire down here. It's kind of one of the worst interfaces in my eyes, this itty bitty wire. And then once you do that, you can now grab the control handle. So click on that, and then you can go in here. And if I grab the just tip right here of the scale and scale out, you see it's going to make it larger, which is going to make the squares. So it's really a 1-to-1 ratio. Be kind of straightforward about it. From the front view here, you can see that it's stretching really badly. So just put a flat plane projection on your entire model. Then we're going to cut the seams. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to hide the checkerboard. And you can see it inside the viewport here if you turn that on. So if you have a texture already painted, you want to move the UVs to the texture, you could do that through the image. Go through that in a little bit more detail. But let's go ahead and turn off the checker and let's UV map this thing. So I have a UVs applied. That's the first thing you need to do. If it doesn't have UVs, go up here on the whole model, give it one regular planar mapping, and now we're going to use the UV editor to cut the seams. So the way we do that is through just three different steps. There's cut and sew. So there's Shift X to cut, Shift S to sew them back up. And then if you go to tools, unfold, Control U. So Control X, Control S, Control U, 3 keys to remember. Most everything else is accessible. Right click, you could go to faces, edge, vertex, UV shell. The shell would mean just kind of like when we double click a face, it'll automatically, if I double click this, it's going to grab all the connected faces, and you can see the robe's all connected together, and it's connected as we looked at with the legs, even though there's an edge there, but it is not connected to the hands. It's not connected to the eyes, right? So, but I can just marquee drag and grab the whole thing, and now I have all the faces selected to UV mapping in there. But let's cut this up. So to do that, we go to edge mode. I like to select the edges, and you want to pick edges you would maybe normally see in the seams, and you want to do areas that you want to hide it. So for this one, I'm going to go underneath the, we'll go to the back of the arms actually. Maybe we go underneath in some cases and down the side. But I'm just going to do like one complete unwrap with this guy. So I'm going to just double click this edge. It's going to go all the way across the shoulders here like that. And then I'm going to go Control and Shift and double click this way. So you can see where the edges are, and you can see them highlight in orange here in the UV editor. So after I've done that, we don't want the seams to go down the front. So I'm going to hold Control and take away everything right up to about the front here, where the front of the hood. So this way, if I'm looking at the character, I'm not going to see the seam here in the main part, front of the head. I do have that one there. And this is where some X-ray mode stuff comes in handy. You can like deselect. So I'll grab more than I need as usual, and then just deselect what I don't. And go underneath. Well, all those. The inside of the cuffs will cut the seams separately because you're not going to see. It's a good place to hide the seams where the seams would naturally occur, right? Go right to the edge, right to right about there. That's good. Maybe up to that point right there. Let me turn the X-ray off so you can see. But looking like it's pretty good. Goes up and under and around. I will take that one off. Like this. Okay, so that's one. It's just going to go up underneath the hood. We could also just cut the seam around all around the neck of the cowl. That's actually not a bad idea. There's a few different ways to do this. I'm just kind of thinking. It goes. Oh yeah, we went inside the cuff of the sleeve. I'm going to take away all of those, as well as the front where it comes around, and the front of the chest right there. I'm being really careful in my view angle. I can go back to X-ray, and I'm not taking away anything that's behind it. I missed some right there. Right on the keyboard, like so. Just to reiterate again, we've cut it down up to the front, just the front of the forehead, back down the center, crisscross across the back of the shoulder blades to the edge of the cuff here at the arm, and to the edge of the sleeve. On the bottom underneath the hem, just where it dips underneath it. So once I do that, I'm going to hit Shift, go to the UV interface, hit Shift X. One time, you see it changes color. I mean, that X, there we go. Those are now UV seams. So if I go to unfold this thing, it's going to unfold with these being cut open. Before I do that, though, let's go ahead and go inside the cuffs here. That's pretty easy to do. So go in here to the edge, double click one time, goes all the way around the ring there. And I have object symmetry axis turned on. So I know that's doing both sides, oops, did not go all the way around. Manually do all four of them. 8-sided shape, right? They have the T intersection, 3-spoke intersection. It'll always stop when it comes to the spoke. Be really conscious of that time you're doing stuff. Go check the other side, make sure I have that selected as well. Your symmetry is working. Okay, got it. It's selected in here. Shift X on the keyboard. There it goes one time. And then where the cuff came along here inside the seam, I think I stopped. Yeah, I stopped the seam right in the inside, right there. Let's go ahead and finish that seam cut. So I'm going to grab that one. Control Shift, add that with the sides there. Shift X, cut, and you'll see the cut will appear here. There we go. That's looking good. Let's go underneath the robe here, and let's cut the seam inside up. Oh shoot, yeah, just go in here, double click all the way around, go back in here, Shift X, cut, seam, cut, go, and go around the legs here. Double click, Control Shift, double click, We'll go around both sides of the legs, and we'll go to the inseam of the leg. Shift X to cut. Go inside the leg here, double click one time, take away what we don't need, and it goes up all around the foot, all the way around the entire model. We can go into this interface here, take away all of that stuff there from that side view, and take away all of the stuff from the outside of the leg and underneath the foot as well. Showing you how I double click, follow an edge loop all the way around, and then take away what we don't. Comes down here to the seam of the foot, right here around the sole. The inside right there, just go to the bottom seam where the sole touches the ground, double click each time it comes to the 3-spoke intersection, or 3-spoke right here, double click. And actually, we could leave it where it hinges on this side here, so let me leave that. So it's going to cut here, this bottom sole is going to flip outward, and you'll do a bunch of these. Got that on active there. Okay, side and click and click. So this is where the seams are going to cut along the foot. Go in here, Shift X. Go, cut. And now go inside the hood here, to the edge of the seam. Go right there. Go just inside the cowl where we won't see, double click right there. Shift X, cut. So selecting the seams and cutting them is the essence of making this a quick and painless process. We could do one on the inside as well. Right along here, back of the cowl, which is all going to be black. We're not going to see much in there, but then we'll see something. And then along the top, maybe right there. So go back in here, Shift X, cut again. Oops, I think I double clicked on accident. Yeah, bad. In here, Shift X, cut. Okay, so there's, we can see the seams are white from the viewport editor. That's good. Okay, so now we're going to grab this whole thing. So all the pieces that are connected at least. So double click the faces. You either double click the faces in the viewport, or you could double click the faces in the UV editor. Go back and forth. It wasn't always like that. It's kind of evolved the last few years. Yeah, after we have the whole thing, that again was under Tools, or I'm sorry, Modify, Unfold, Control U, right? And grab the whole thing and hit Control U. And there we go. And here is your pattern. Here's the flat overlay of your entire torso. Look at that. That is pretty darn nice. And we turn on checkerboard, and yeah, the checkers are pretty good all the way around. Underneath, it contorts a little bit underneath the armpit. That's okay. That's normal. Anytime you have extreme turns, you're gonna have some. We could always cut the seams at the shoulder and cut the sleeve off completely if we needed to. And the parts we didn't have from the cut, by selecting in the view. If I select in here, it grabs everything. If I double click here, however, because they're all connected by faces, but if I double click the faces in here, it only grabs the faces that are not cut at the UV seams. So very different. So double click here. Now I grab the whole thing. Now if I do this in the viewport, hit Control U. Again, there, now it unwrapped the legs down here. Okay. Well, there's two of them. Get symmetry turned on. Let's turn off object symmetry for just a moment. One leg. There we go. Kind of see how that unfolded. There's the sole with the hinge of the sole at the edge that I was talking about. So the hinge is out here, and the cut of the seam. If I turn the checkerboard off again, you see that white line. That's on the inside. So you're not going to see much of the insides. You did paint it out and pixelate. Paint out the pixel so it's not pixelated. The bottom underneath is over here. There. I've done a pretty good job of figuring out how to warp this around without it stretching too much. If we needed to, we could cut some more edges, maybe along each of the outside areas here and here. Then it would break it into two parts possibly. go ahead and try that. So I'm just going to here edge, double click one time. And again, it stops in here. Doesn't continue all the way around the model like it does if you double click in the viewport. So selecting by UVs can be really handy. Orange there, not running anywhere else up along. You could always use F on the keyboard to center frame. Grab that, and now I'm going to hit Shift X again. Go to Faces and Control U, and there. Now it's relaxed. Kind of stressing. It's trying to move those pixels in 3D space around, but it's just like clothing pattern making. It's just like, you know, getting those seams done. For we're doing seamstress work, right? Looks pretty good. Inside of the hood, we can see that backside's awfully large right there. This piece here, I could scale, so it's about the right size, or just hit Control U again, and get that to be about the right size here. We could turn on the pixels. If you need to put it over the numbers to see if it's rotated, you can go E, and you can rotate it. Off inside this viewport. There we go. And if I turn it, there you go. That's up, that's sideways, and that is upright. That's the actual top. That's the bottom. That's what these letters and numbers are used for, so you can kind of determine where this is happening. And there we go. So I missed a seam right here. That's why it's stretching funny. Where the checkers are stretching. You want to avoid stretching your UVs because the pixels are going to stretch. If I have a herringbone or some kind of woven pattern, it's going to stretch funny. So if I miss a seam, it's going to force them to stay together. It's not going to let them relax. So if I get that edge right there, hit Shift X, go back into face mode, double click, Control U, and now it's unwrapped. Now all the checkers are nice and even. Still not quite proportionately the same size as everything, but you can always just scale up or down and try and get everything to match. Whatever the biggest, these are called shells, these individual pieces of the pattern. Whichever one is the biggest piece, you want to fill the space up here between 0 and 1. Let's just look at this by itself for a moment. So 0 is here. The UV axis is 0 to 1 here. So I'm going to zoom back out for a moment, grab all this stuff, go to my move tool and move over. I'm looking at this big landmass here, and I want to push it until I can get it to fill just, you want cell padding for pixel padding. You want a few pixels of space in between the edges. There it goes, touching the top. So we got to keep it underneath 1 there. And I'm leaving enough room for the legs and the inside of the hood. Underneath these parts you're not going to see, you can make them smaller, but the legs, I think they're going to fit. It's going to be pretty tight. So let's shrink this down just a little bit. So I'm going to switch to R on the keyboard, shrink it down, give myself enough breathing room. So I tend to like these to be centered up along the seam line, just in case I want to do any mirroring or snapping in Photoshop, but it's not necessary. Kind of a habit. So there's the front, and I do like to have like, okay, which side is this is the top and which is the bottom. So we know that the seam is up here right at the top, at the bottom is the middle. So we go, that is this side over here. So if we double click that and spin it around, that's going to be the back insides up here, and this is going to be the front of the cow. And you can see if I click on a face in here, there, and then F on the keyboard, it's going to zoom in. That's the base, the bottom right there. Then it goes forward and around. So let's actually this way and see if that makes sense as well. Oh no, that again, and it might be backwards. Let's see. I don't know. Bring it over the letters. A moment, and yeah, so it's upside down. Upside down from looking at it from that angle, at least. It goes up and around. So, but it's not backwards. That's the main thing. If you right click in here, modify, there's, you know, flip, layout along, snap to, there's so much stuff in here, and you don't really need 95% of it for most cases. Not you don't need it ever, but you don't need it. just learning how to do it. You just want to get it done quick and dirty. So there we go. And this is inside. Again, it's going to be just mostly black. So I'm going to shrink it down a bit. So you're never going to really see it. Then just like maybe some really dark pixels. Same thing with the back. Out here, you can see that's about the right size, but we could just shrink it down. And you can fit these pieces that are going to be mostly hidden. You can just kind of fit them within the shell edges. So just make sure you get a couple pixels of padding space between them. We used to like optimize this to death, like all day. I've wasted hundreds and hundreds of hours UV mapping in the old days. It used to be extremely painful. There was no auto unfold button like you have now. It was painstakingly done, pixel by pixel. So these auto cut, auto sew, auto unfold buttons are just a blessing. And really, there's the same thing here underneath the legs. Like you're never gonna see this unless you're looking up the skirt, the hood really intensely. So I'm just gonna shrink that down a little bit and put it here. Again, the pixels may not be as detailed in there. The feet you might see. Probably not much of the upper leg though. We'll bring both these guys over here. Marquee drag across them. Control right click, go to shell. That'll grab all the shells. It's another way to kind of take care of that, and then switch over to scale. Get them in. Don't have to waste space, but also don't kill yourself over it. Like as you're doing your portfolio and you want to get like super detailed and get everything perfect, when that time comes, cross that bridge when you get to it. But don't spend 10 hours UV mapping your character. That would be a giant waste of time. Grab both of these guys and scale them down. Okay, so we just got to do the eyeballs and the hands. So nice flat UV layout. There's one hand there and two hands. One eyeball there and click two eyeballs. Over there. The eyeballs are pretty, they're just like a spherical blob that I dropped in there. Nothing fancy at all. So let's look at it from inside the viewport. So let's grab the two edges. One, double click here and double click there. Maybe let's turn symmetry back on again. So we could do both eyeballs at once. One, double click there. So it's going to do the same there. Go back into the viewport editor. I do Alt middle mouse to activate it. Shift X to cut. And then go to faces. Grab all the faces, the eyeballs, Control U, unwrap them. And there you go. And you just want the front of the eyeball to be clear. There you go. We don't really care much about the back side of the eyeball at all. There. And we'll UV unwrap the hands next. So the hands would be probably the hardest part to get in there. But as we did with the recipe for the hands, we can also do the hands. There's a method to doing the hands as well. Double click the hand and let's isolate it for just a moment. So that way we don't have to see the whole thing. And you just want to pick the central edge that runs in between the fingers here all the way around. So if I go to edge mode, double click, and you see it goes all the way around the whole hand like that till it hits the front end here with the thumb. Okay, and that's what we want. Now we want it to hinge on the outside of the hand. So we're going to take away all of the edge loops here, all the way to the outside of the pinky finger. So we get right about there. That's going to be where it hinges, just like the outside of the foot. It's going to stay sewn up here along the side here. So it's going to basically flip out the underside of the palm and the top of the hand are going to both be flattened out. Now when we get here to the thumb, we can continue this cut right here to this side, but make sure it's not going along this side. This side's all sealed. But from the edge, tip of the pinky finger, the center edge loop all the way around all the fingers, those all get cut. And then we got to do the thumb too. So I usually go down one and then around to to the inside of the thumb right here. I'll just do this manually. I try not to do individual clicks because it just messes your body up, your arm for the years. It does get painful. So that is cutting right there to the edge of the thumb. Doing pretty good. We could go all the way around the thumb. Keep that on one side, but let's see how this does right now. Have that done. Symmetry was on. We're in the viewport here. So Alt middle mouse, F to zoom in, Shift X at one time. They change color. Right click, go to faces, double click, Control U. And yeah, there you go. That is a near perfect hand UV. Took us a couple minutes. Seam along the outside edge of the palm goes right here. Turn on checkerboard. The checkers are all relative. There's a little warble going on here along the top of the hand. That's pretty normal. Underneath the thumb right here enough so that it could unwrap. I think we should have cut. Yeah, I missed the tip of the thumb right here. So let's just grab that thumb right there. It's forcing the pixels around that edge right there. So we'll just go in here, Shift X, cut, right click, go to faces, Control U, and you'll see it relaxed a great deal. So undo that, Control X, Control Z, excuse me, and Control Y. Difference. It's kind of pop that open for us a little bit. And then if we want to see that on a grander scale, we can turn on the checkerboard and bring it over in front of the UV. Hit R on the keyboard to scale, bring it way up big, and there you can kind of see how even, for the most part, it curves a little bit. But for the most part, this is nice and easy. That's so fast, so powerful to be able to UV that using these new tools now. Turn that off. Yeah. And then I like to kind of place them where they go on the character. So if we go out of the isolation mode there, go to object mode again. It does a little medallion too. I forgot about the isolating that. So it's good to know, like, okay, this is the right sleeve over here. Just grab those faces. You have to turn off object symmetry. So that is his right arm. That's his right hand. So let's keep the right hand over here and let's move the left hand over there. And the same thing with the foot. Yeah, see, I have him inverted. Just, maybe you want something painted differently on one foot compared to the other. Right? And I think I should have done this earlier, but again, not to overkill this, but if, logical, it's like puzzle pieces a little bit. So, if I can get away with optimizing this a little bit without too much trouble, then definitely do it. But don't spend more than an extra 10, 15 minutes on it. Excuse me, I got this up. There, kind of making sure that spacing is evened up a bit more. Good. Left eye, right eye, left eye. Bring it over, maybe flat, even right eye. If you wanted to have like some really cool, crazy detailed cat's eye or something wild in there, you could take these two front of the eyeballs and scale and blow them way up. And I actually do that a lot. And traditionally it's been done a lot because the eyeballs, the eyes are the windows to the soul. And so a lot of times we want that extra, is that? It might be flipped a little bit. Okay, this is the back of the eye. Like, never used. All right, just had Blue Angels Fleet Week blasting over my head a minute ago. I don't know if that showed up on the mic or not, but okay. So that is a very quick overview of the UV mapping process for characters. Talked a little bit about the sleeves, pipe shoving. We talked a little about where to keep them attached still, where the seams are. typical areas where to cut, usually stopping the top of the widow's peak, usually where the hairline's going to be, the forehead. Interior caps, the hiding areas. And so when we're done here, we go to UVs, grab all the UVs, go to image, UV snapshot, and make sure you know where this is going to. So this one is going to some random snapshot area. That's no bueno. So go file, set project, make sure that you have your project set and save out. Maya if is still the default. Oh my gosh, after all these years. Come on, you guys. Yeah, it's just a JPEG's fine. And 2048 by 2048 pixels is the size of your texture map we're going to paint this on. Okay, we'll come back. Okay, I just had to reset my project because my Google Drive was not connecting, and then you just lose access to all the stuff that's in your Google Drive on desktop. That was horrible. Okay, so yeah, file, set project, make sure your project's set correctly so that way when you do the UV snapshot, the thing about the UV snapshot, you want everything between 0 and 1 space. We're not covering the 0 to 2 or 2 to 0 UDMs yet. But the main thing is that you have everything selected. So you have to actually select the UVs that you want to take a snapshot of. Hopefully my memory serves me correct on this. Default JPEG, check the browse. Yeah, it's still going to the OneDrive. That is really lame. It should be going to my images. There we go, images inside your image folder. There we go. There's the put Claude UV'd from before. We'll call this robed guy underscore 01 underscore UV UVWs or UVs, but I just say UV. From the tool settings should be the file type that we just switched from the myif and apply and close. And there we go. And we could take a look at that. All right, so we go into our project. Mine's my step-by-step Maya folder I've been working in for a while now. And I go into images, and there is my robed guy UVs. I open that up, and there's your UVW maps. Voila! So now we can texture map our character. So what I'd like to do with this one is open it up with Photoshop, and we'll start from there. But before we do that, actually, before I start from there, let's finish up some of the detailed modeling on this guy. So the next step would be to smooth this guy out, right? So let's see what happens when we do that. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of this character. I'm in isolation mode right now. I have my little recipe from my other guys. He's like, looks like a little Jawa now. So we'll take this character. And remember, if you have separate objects, like I have this guy still separate, I can go into the editor here, and I can grab this, just the medallion. You see it comes with the auto unwrap from the cylinder presets on there. So we could just grab all those, go to faces, grab them all, and just hit Control U, unwrap, and it should rescale everything. You see that's the outer border, is the little seam all the way around it. Now, if we want to sew that up, we didn't use the sew tool yet. Let's just right click, go back to the hardened mode, double click that edge right there. Go back in here and Shift S to sew. You see it's all mangled. It like drags them over to it and all that good stuff. But no problem. Just grab all the faces, Control U, unwrap again, and you see it left one seam undone for us right out here. Which is interesting choice. If I did want that seam that I would put on the bottom, we'd never see it. Looks like from the white area. Yeah, it's over there. So that's no problem. So just go to this edge here, Shift S again. I think it doesn't like. So that's edge up for some reason. Wonder why it's doing that. Okay, well, don't battle stuff like that for right now. It's fine. Just double click. And we can move that to the bottom. This is the back of it. Again, you'll never see. I'll just leave it smaller. Doesn't need that many pixels. And this is the medallion. If we want the medallion to be, go to object mode, show both the objects. We want the medallion to be super detailed like that compared to the character. Like it had like some significance in the gameplay. So go ahead and double click this one and go to face mode, double click, grab this and scale them both down. And I'm going to leave it fairly big like I did with the eyeballs. So I'll scale it down to right about there and just find an area on the UV space that's not used. We'll talk about sectors and quadrants and moving things around. So you can reuse UVs for character costume sets and things like that. But right up there should be fine. So any accessories, so I leave space on here. Like there's like a little rope cord that went around his neck, I think. There's a few other objects in there, but it should be good for right now. But let's go ahead and take this character. I'm going to Control D. I'm going to duplicate him, bring him off to the side, and now we're going to smooth the character. So this is the cool part, what we've been building up to this whole semester. So if I smooth it, right, it's just a visual display to smooth. But what if we really actually smooth the character? Because right now he's very low poly. So display, and we have a few different objects, things we could show. Here's where you hide and show different things in your scene from the pull-down menu. But we have object display, we have polygons right here. So display polygons, and there's backface culling. You should know where that one is. But the one we want is the face triangles. There's hard and standard edges, soft edges, triangles. So we'll go, we want to know what the polygon count is for this character. And for the polygon count, we want to see it in the heads up display. So display, heads up display, and here's your polygon count with the little settings box. So we'll take a look at the settings box. And polygon count with the age smooth review is the only options there. It's kind of silly. Line close, so that didn't work. Heads up display, oh, because I guess I didn't turn it on. There we go. And now you see up here in the top here is your polygon count. So if I click on the character one time, you see my triangle count, faces count, edge count. So at the end of the day, all quads are 2 triangles. So but you could look at the total triangle. So it's a 5,000 triangle character, pretty low poly by today's standards. Here's the medallion. Is only 96. Is he? So if I subdivide him one time, each quad is cut into 4 parts. You just multiply the triangles by 4. So he'll go from 5,000 to 20,000. 20,000. That's a lot. That's that's getting up there. But with Unreal 5, 5.3, that's nothing. So before we do that, let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back.